Hi, I'm Ryann Hallback with the Vertex Project. In this video, I'm going to demo Synapse's Vertex-Triage Power-Up. In nearly every field, triage is used to prioritize emergent requests. We see medical professionals use it to determine which patients need to be seen first. We even see SOC analysts use it to validate an alert and determine if it needs further investigation. At Vertex, we understand how critical triage is for effective team operations. So, we created the Vertex Triage Power-Up to help organizations manage and track triage operations directly within the Synapse platform. In this demo, I'll show you how the Power-Up works through the lens of an open source intelligence or OSINT-Triage use case. I'll walk you through how a notional cyber threat intel or CTI team uses the Power-Up along with other Synapse tools like Spotlight, automation, and the messages tool to streamline OSINT triage and analysis. Let's get started. Let's say it's May 27th of 2025, and my name is Rayne. I am the CTI team lead at a global tech company named Party Cactus Labs. We're a Synapse Enterprise customer, and we use OSINT reporting to expand our visibility into threat activity. My job is to rapidly triage this OSINT, this constant stream of OSINT that we ingest every single day, like the reports you see here on my screen. That means identifying reports that are analytically relevant and valuable, prioritizing and assigning them to the right analyst as quickly as possible. From there, my team can then extract and enrich IOCs and contextualize the threat for both internal and external teams. At the center of this process that I just described is the Vertex Triage Power-Up. When you install the Triage Power-Up, it installs a set of commands, even node workflows, and workflows in general that allow you to add tasks, configure the workflow, and manage tasks all directly within the system. In order to use the Power-Up for triage, you have to have a set of queues defined. By default, it does not install any queues in the system, so you have to define the queues that you want to use. To set our team up for OSINT-Triage, I installed or created this OSINT queue. I added this queue to our system, then I added users and roles based on who I wanted to have access. From there, we're able to then start ingesting OSINT and triaging tasks. To keep up with the constant flow of intel, we rely on automation to ingest reports in Synapse. So we have a cron job that runs hourly that allows us to pull in various reports from our power-ups like NIST, Alien Vault, and our RSS Power-Up as well. When these reports get ingested by Power-Ups, it's really helpful because the Power-Ups will first create a media news node to represent the report itself. It'll also link key indicators directly to the report. And then for any key indicators that it finds, it will automatically add tags if those tags are defined within the API itself. So here you can see what it's like when we modeled a trend micro report and a pulse that we got from Alien Vault. Once a report is added to the system, we then use a custom trigger that will immediately create a new task for me to start the triage process. This particular trigger will run our triage task at command, and it'll also assign it to me so that I can begin triaging this task as soon as possible. Once we have tasks starting to flow into the system, I can then go back to my workflow. I can go to my task, workflow specifically, and I can start managing triage tasks directly within the Synapse platform. As you can see, I am able to use this task workflow as my centralized view for all tasks that we have across our enterprise. Right now, I'm looking at all tasks across all queues. But what I typically like to do is kind of pare this down and only look at tasks that are associated with the OSINT queue. I also like to look at tasks that are just assigned to me at times unless I'm trying to review one of my team members' work. So if I filter by Rayne, I can see the tasks that have been assigned to me either historically, so the ones that are done, and even the ones that are currently, let's say, in review. So if I search for tasks that are in review, I can see all of the tasks that I currently need to look at. In addition to being able to pare down my results by setting these filters, I also have the option to search by task by certain streams. So if I wanted to see if this particular task had malware in the name, I can search by that, and I can reduce my current results to only tasks that have that name. Then when I click on a task, I'm able to see comments associated with that task. I can add additional comments if I want to have a particular dialogue with my team members. And if I want a more detailed view of the task, so looking at any properties that are not directly viewable in this table, I can click this editor tab and look at the additional properties that way as well. To start the triage process, I want to look for tasks that are in the OSINT queue assigned to me that have a status of new, because this means that I haven't looked at the task yet, and I need to actually triage them and do things like assign them a priority and actually assign assignee. Based on my results, it looks like I have about 10 tasks that I need to triage. So I'll just go ahead and tackle this first task that we see here. To let my team know that I've started the triage process, I'm going to change the status from new to invalidation. This updated the timestamp associated with the task as well. Now I can go ahead and get started. With OSINT-Triage, my goal is to set the priority of the task and assign it to the right analyst as quickly as possible. So that means I actually need to take a look at the article associated with the task and try to quickly figure out what the report is talking about, if what they're reporting on is relevant to my organization at all, and whether it's urgent or something that maybe we can tackle later. I can view the details of the task itself directly in the workflow, but if I want to view the task nodes, I need to use this helper to actually lift the nodes in the research tool. So what we have here with that helper, we have the actual ticket or task that I'm working on myself, which is represented as a project ticket node. And then I also have this media news node as well. When I run the triage power-up to actually create a task, it does two things. It creates this project ticket node for me, and then it also links the associated data that I need to work on, whether that's via analysis or for a review directly to the ticket. This really helps streamline my triage process because it just makes it easy for me to access the data that I need to analyze. There's not too much context switching going on there. The first thing I need to do is figure out what the report is actually talking about, right? What intel is being presented. So this report that we ingested from Alien Vault, in order for me to determine that, I can quickly do things like look at the title and summary and try to figure out what's going on. So looking at the title and the summary, if I hover over the summary, it looks like they're talking about a new Russian threat cluster named Void Blizzard. And based on the threat cluster naming convention, it looks like this pulse, which is what this media news note represents from Alien Vault, it looks like this pulse is summarizing a Microsoft report. I actually like this because in my mind, this adds credence to the intel itself, given that Microsoft is well known and a reputable intel source for us. Something else that I also like to do when I'm trying to get the gist of the report is review the topics. Now, the topics is not a property that's populated automatically, but what we have set up internally is a custom trigger that will scan the title and also the summary of a report and look for key topics that we have defined in our Synapse instance. And if it finds a topic, it will add it to the topics array for us to view. And I love this because this is just a great way for me to quickly get the gist of the report without having to read a long summary. So if I just scan the topics, it looks like this article could be detailing Russian espionage and maybe phishing activity targeting Ukraine. That's just what it looks like. That's just my initial thought, but I'll continue to look at the report to verify that. After I get an idea of what the report may be talking about, which is definitely interesting, right? They're talking about Russian threat activity and specifically new Russian threat activity. Now I want to get an idea of if it's relevant to my organization. The title mentions that Void Blizzard was observed targeting critical sectors. But what will be helpful is if I can determine if it was actually observed targeting the technology sector. So if I explore from this media news node, if Alien Vault actually reported the technology industry in its pulse, it'll be linked directly here to the media news node. So as I scroll down to the industry names that were contained in the report, I see here that the IT industry was in fact mentioned in the report. Now, while I don't have the full context yet about why the IT industry was mentioned, just the fact that it was mentioned alone makes this report interesting to me and enough for me to want to continue triaging it. The next thing I want to know is whether or not this intelligence is new or if it's something we're automatically or already tracking. Synapse is our system of analytical record. So if we're already tracking this set of activity, then we should have a threat cluster in our system representing Void Blizzard. When Alien Vault released this report, they released an organization name that we were able to represent in the system named Void Blizzard. If I explore from this organization name, I should have a risk threat node named Void Blizzard in my system. Since I pivoted over and I see that I don't, this means that we're not currently tracking this threat cluster, which makes this piece of reporting even more interesting to me. Because this means that this is something that we need to track and maybe get on top of. And it's likely something that I want to prioritize and quickly assign for analysis. The last thing that I want to determine is whether or not this intelligence is timely. So sometimes we have situations where companies may be reporting on activity that they have already decommissioned. I want to know if this is, a set of activity that's current or if it's outdated. Is it something that we need to, hop on now, or can we just kind of wait a little bit and prioritize other things? In order for me to figure out if this is active, I want to look at or need to look at the source report for key dates. To do this, what I can do is look for the URL that's referenced by the pulse. In this case, I have this Microsoft URL. I can click this URL and open it in Spotlight to quickly read through it and see if I can identify some key dates. Being able to open this report directly in Spotlight, directly in Synapse is really helpful because I don't have to leave the tool. As I look at the very first paragraph and as I look for dates, I immediately notice that Microsoft mentions that in April of 2025, so this year, they observed Void Blizzard engaging in malicious activity. Really, this is all that I need to see, on my end to let me know that this is something that we want to hop on, right? Because it's something that is active. So this tells me everything I need to know. I have a new Russian threat cluster reported by Microsoft, which is great. They're active and they are potentially targeting our industry. So what I want to do now is assign this based on my assessment, the highest priority level. To assign it that priority level, I can go back to my triage workflows. What I'll do first, I'll say that I'm done validating this particular report. So I'll put it in the sprint because this is something that I want worked on immediately. I'll change the priority from none to highest. And then I want to go ahead and assign it to an analyst. In this case, I'll choose Zoe. Zoe is our resident Russian, enthusiast. She loves to look at those reports. So I'll assign it to her as our SME. When I assign it to Zoe, she will immediately receive a message alerting her that I assigned her a task. This is because we have a custom trigger in place that automatically sends a user a message via the messages tool whenever a task is assigned to them. So to see what this looks like, let's go ahead and switch over to Zoe's Synapse instance to see what she will see as she's looking at her system and as she's working in her system. All right, so now we switch over to Zoe. We switch from Ryann to Zoe. And when Zoe is working in her Synapse instance, there is an indication, she has a notification that she has a new message. So I have a new message, I'm Zoe. I want to come in here and see what this message is. So looking at this message, it looks like I've been assigned a new OSINT ticket. Looking at the name, it looks like we have some new reporting on a new actor named Void Blizzard, which is great. So what I want to do is go ahead and start looking at and working on my assignment. To do that, I'll come over to first the workflows tool, go to task for triage, and I want to take a look at a ticket that I need to work on. Taking a look at the ticket, I can see that I don't have any comments in here from Ryann, so it's nothing that I need to be aware of from there. So now I'm going to change the status to in progress to let her know that I'm working on it. The next thing I want to do is actually take a look at the OSINT itself. So I'm going to view the task nodes in the research tool. But before I start digging into the article, what I want to do is create a fork view. So as a part of our workflow, we always like to create a fork view just to kind of isolate are changes from the production data, and to make sure that I don't introduce any unintended data to our production OSINT data. So I'm going to create this Fort View named Zoe Void Blizzard to work in to make it intuitive. Then I'll go ahead and add Ryann as a user so that when I'm done and she needs to review my work, she can come in and access this particular view. So now I have my Fort View. So the next thing I want to do is I'll go ahead and explore from the media news node and just immediately start looking at this document in Synapse. I'm sorry, not Synapse, but our Spotlight tool. Spotlight automatically creates a new media news node to represent the report, which is great. It also extracts common indicators like FQDNs and links them to the article. So as I look at the report, I can see here on my left, I have the report, and then I have indicators that it was able to automatically extract, which is great. But one of the first things that I like to do is that I like to populate some of the metadata on the media news node that Spotlight created. Because when it creates the media news node, as you can see here, it's pretty bare, right? There aren't many properties that are populated. So I like to go to Spotlight and capture some of that key information about the report itself. So scrolling back up, one of the first things that I'll capture is the date that the report was published. So we have May 27th. I'll also capture the title of the report. So I'll set that here. Then I'll go ahead and capture the summary. I can write my own, but I like to keep it pretty simple and capture the summary that the author provided. And then lastly, I'll capture the publisher of the report. And in this case, we have Microsoft. So let's say that next what I want to do is try to read the report to figure out what's happening. In the interest of time, let's assume that I just read the report, and based on what I was able to figure out, Microsoft is reporting on Void Blizzard, this new Russian espionage threat actor who was observed targeting several sectors, including ours. And they recently changed their TTPs. They were seen launching a phishing campaign posing as a European summit organizer. So I want to capture that information. Microsoft released a set of indicators at the bottom of the report that Spotlight was able to extract, which is great. But I also want to go ahead and extract some additional key information that'll be helpful for us to track this activity. Things that Spotlight can't automatically extract, like the threat cluster name. So if I scroll all the way back up to the top, what I want to start with is creating a threat cluster name or a threat cluster for Void Blizzard. To do this, I can use an extractor and create a risk threat node for Void Blizzard. I also want to go ahead and capture this laundry bear name that's associated with this group as well. This appears to be an alternate name that's used to refer to this risk threat in the community. So I'll go to all props, go to my names array, and I'll add this laundry bear name to this threat group as well. There are a lot of properties that I'm interested in populating about this threat cluster, but in the interest of time, the properties that I'll populate now is the country code, just to say that this threat cluster is associated with Russia. And then I also want to go ahead and add the tag that we want to associate with this cluster as well. And this becomes important just because as I want to associate indicators with this particular cluster, I want to make it known that they are associated with Void Blizzard when someone sees that tag. So I'll go ahead and populate all of that information. Something else that I want to make sure I capture all these industries that they were seen targeting. So if I select all of these industries, say create nodes, I can create all of these industry names. So I'll submit these industry names here. And then we have a second group as well that I can create. So I'll create these industry names as well. The last thing that I want to make sure that I capture are the things that this particular threat group was seen using. So the European Defense Security Summit is something that they use to masquerade as. So I want to create a node or an entity name to represent that. I also want to go ahead and try to capture the malware families that they were observed using as well. So the first one we have here is Evil Jinx. So I can use an extractor to create a risk tool software node to represent that. And then I also want to go ahead and create a risk tool node to represent Azure Hound, which is a tool that they were using as a part of their operations as well. So I'll use an extractor for that too. So now I have all of the information that I wanted to extract. I have the entity name. I also have the software nodes, the threat group, and the industry names. Now what I want to do is link some of this data to the risk threat node as well. So if I copy all of these nodes and select my risk threat node, I can say add edges. And then I can come here and say that this particular threat cluster uses all of these tools and these names as a part of their operation. So if I hit enter, I can link them using a user's light edge. I want to do the same thing with these industries as well. In this case, I want to say that this particular cluster targets these industries because that's important to know. So I can come in and use the targets verb to indicate that they target these industries. I can say add all and then have all of these added here as well. Now, the last thing I want to do is make sure that all of the indicators that were reported have been enriched. This is pretty simple because we have a trigger in place that automatically enriches nodes that have a rep tag. And since these nodes previously had a rep alien vault tag, they should have been enriched before I even started looking at them. But what I like to do is spot check and make sure that they do contain connections to other nodes. So to do this, I can lift one of the indicators in the research tool, explore over and make sure that it's connected to some other nodes in the graph. So I can see that this MicrosoftOnline.com domain is connected to some certificates, some DNSA records, etc., even some AV scan result nodes. So this lets me know that enrichments like virus total were in fact successfully executed, which is perfect. So now that I've verified that, I'm essentially done with my initial analysis. So what I want to do now is connect the media news node that I created to the ticket that I was assigned. This will make it easy for Ryann to see my work. So I can go in here and copy the media news node and link them together using our add edges dialog. So I will link the media news node here. Now they're connected so that when Ryann comes in, she can easily see what I've been working on. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and switch back to the OSINT production view. And I want to do that because I want to update the task in the workflow. So now the status of the task is no longer in progress because I'm done. I want to change it to in review because I want Ryann to review it. And then lastly, I'll go ahead and assign it back to Ryann so that she can get a notification and know that I am, finally finished reviewing this report. So what I want to do now is go back over to Ryann. All right, so I'm back. I'm logged into my instance and I'm here working. And while I'm working in here as Ryann, what I noticed is that I have a new message. If I go to the messages tool and click here, what I'll see is I have been reassigned the Void Blizzard ticket that I originally assigned to Zoe. So this means that she has completed her initial analysis. So if I go back to the workflows tool and I refresh, I can see, and I'll take a look at tickets that are in review. I can see that I have a new ticket that's in review. One of the things that I want to do as I look at this ticket that's in review, I want to go ahead and go to the fork view that she created. We have a convention internally where analysts will create a fork view with their name and the report that they are analyzing. So I'm going to her fork view so that I can take a look at her report and her analysis. So I'm going to view the task nodes in the research tool. So here I see that she has in fact created a new media news node. This was the one that we originally ingested from Alien Vault, and this is the one that Zoe created. My goal here in reviewing her work is not to thoroughly, go through the report. I just want to make sure that she has some of the key data about the report itself populated, like the publisher, the title, and summary, which she does. I also want to make sure that she extracted out some key data that we can use for our clustering and analysis. So things like the industries that were targeted, which she did, any key names that were used within the targeted, like this European Defense and Security Summit. Also see that she did things like create software tools and risk threat nodes as well. One of the things that I noticed that she did not do that I wanted her to do were tag these nodes with Microsoft specific context. So what I want to do in this case is I would tell her, hey, I want you to go back. There was a step that you missed, maybe inadvertently. So in order for me to do that, I can just go back to my workflow tool. I'll come in here and add a comment for her to take a look at this ticket. So I can say add, and I can say, actually let me switch views here. I'll go to OSINT production and say, whoops, it looks like you missed something. And then I can shoot it over back to her. Then I can, change this back from in review to, being in sprint. And then I'm going to assign it back to Zoe. So in this case, we had a situation where Zoe was almost close to doing everything that I wanted her to do for a ticket, but there's one small thing that I want her to go back and take a look at. So what you're able to see is just how easy it is to perform triage operations directly in Synapse. Once Zoe updates her work and sends me another message, then I can go back in and confirm that she did everything properly that she needs to do. So as you've seen in this OSINT-Triage use case, the Triage Power-Up enables teams to run streamlined triage operations directly in Synapse. By centralizing tasks, linking relevant data like the OSINT that you need to triage, and integrating tools like automation and the messages tool, teams are able to make decisions faster and quickly prioritize what matters the most. We hope this walkthrough gave you a clear view of how the Triage Power-Up can help improve your triage workflows and accelerate your intelligence operations. If you'd like any more information about the Triage Power-Up, or if you want to learn more about the Synapse platform and other Synapse tools and features, please be sure to check out the resources listed below. Thank you.